It's like, okay, wow, where did you come up with this idea? But fabulous, it's working.
It's changing so fast. The versions of these technologies are coming out so fast.
I would say companies should adapt to these trends by leveraging these advancements and investing in education and awareness.
We've put so much forth, so many controls, and we can't seem to crack the code. This is what's going to change the industry.
You're listening to Food Tech Talk, Supply Chain Insights from Farm to Fork, a podcast discussing the latest trends and technologies in the food and supplements industries, brought to you by Trustwell, featuring conversations with regulatory experts, quality and safety champions, and thought leaders across the industry. If you're loving the conversation, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned to the end of the episode where you'll hear our guests tell us their key food industry predictions. Let's jump right in.
I think we're going to see a lot more acceleration with AI. I mean, everybody has such a great interest in AI and how it can be used. And so I see more AI adoption for restaurants, especially in the areas of food safety and customer experience. I think, being able to have something that can answer some questions, be able to help your staff with certain things. So I think AI, I think everybody's trying to figure out, how can I use AI in my business? And restaurants absolutely are doing that. And they're always very creative with whatever they come up with. I remember some of the things they did in the pandemic were really, really amazing. It's like, okay, wow, where did you come up with this idea? But fabulous, it's working. And I just think they're going to come up with some really cool ways of how they can use AI to enhance their operations and their businesses and help make for an even more awesome customer experience.
I don't know how Gen AI is going to change it. It's just going to be that much more powerful. We see models that are being shown to be offered on the market almost every month, sometimes every other week, that become better and better and better. So my brain is just cannot even compute the future, because I think that we as humans, are going to be so entrenched in technology. We already are, right? Think about your iPhone. You can't do anything without the iPhone anymore, right? But AI, I think, and Gen AI is going to be the name of the game for any industry, period. 5 years, I think, is even 2 years' time. It's going to be it's just something you have to do, because you can't create efficiencies like that in a conservative way, with conservative systems. They just don't work. Look at the recall data. People are still dying. We've put so much forth, so many controls, and we can't seem to crack the code. And I think this one, I don't even think I see it with our clients. This is what's going to change the industry.
If you're enjoying this episode, be sure to check out the reConnect on-demand library. Every October, Trustwell brings together food industry professionals, partners, and customers for reConnect, our annual event focused on sharing best practices, exploring emerging technology, and building stronger supply chains. Now, the full library of sessions is available on demand. From expert panels to product deep dives and industry success stories, there's something for everyone working to improve food safety, transparency, and efficiency. Head to trustwell.com/reconnect to gain access to all of this year's sessions. Now, back to the show.
I think across the board, every employee in the company ought to be using AI, if not for the business, for their own personal lives. Like, for example, search is dead as far as I'm concerned, or at least historical search is dead, right? I'm sure you had the experience of being frustrated with, you type in something into Google and, you get a whole page of results and none of it is relevant to what you're really looking for. Now using these large language models, you can really get very, very specific about what your interests are. And it comes back to not needing expertise. I think everybody went through this phase of using Google and Googling things and so on. And that was, 5 years long or 10 years long. Now everybody should be using these tools every day, in my view. The only way you're going to know how to become effective using these technologies is to have people using the technologies and figuring out how to make it happen. And it's changing so fast. The versions of these technologies are coming out so fast. The iterations and the companies are coming out so fast that I really think you have to encourage a culture of experimentation and testing among all your people. I think we are at the beginning of a new age of productivity improvements as a result of these technologies. I do believe that from a customer experience standpoint, you can improve that customer experience by using those things. So I would recommend that you look at your customer success area. From a marketing standpoint, I think there's huge ways of testing ideas using these technologies. You've got available to you essentially a coach in the large language models that can help you, even though they hallucinate, which we is pretty well documented. They also can be very, very strong advisors and can help you make better decisions and help you reduce the amount of time it takes to get something that really works in the field. So I think there's tons of opportunities here.
I would say that the emerging trends that I predict will most significantly impact food safety. The first thing is enhanced detection and monitoring system, such as PCR, DNA sequencing, and biosensors are enable faster and more accurate detection of harmful bacteria like salmonella. The other thing is robotics and automation and automated hygiene system like hyperspectral imaging and computer vision can efficiently, scan and inspect food products for defects, contaminants, and also freshness. The other thing is data analytics and the predictive models like machine learning algorithms and artificial intelligence. I mean, AI is very important, which can analyze data to identify the correlation between various factors and predict food safety issues. The other thing is, I would say, is food safety culture and education, such as consumer awareness and providing comprehensive training and certificate programs for the food handlers, processors, and inspectors. I would say companies should adapt to these trends by leveraging these advancements and investing in education and awareness, as well as consulting an expert or expert people, and having a good environment to adapt to these trends.
What I really think, though, is going to happen is the consumers are changing their buying patterns. And something to think about that, if you look internationally of the US compared to many other regions of the world, the amount of disposable income we spend in our country on food is sub 10%. If you look in South Korea or you look somewhere else, South Korea is the highest one I've seen. South Korea is at like 45%. Half your disposable income goes to food because the cost of food in that region is so much higher. I do believe that in our country, liquor consumption is going down. Liquor, beer, wine, whatever spirit you're into. And I believe a lot of that revenue is being redirected towards quality food. And what we've struggled in agriculture with for the last couple of decades is people want sustainable, regenerative, organic, whatever buzzword we want to use, but they didn't want to pay for it. And that is probably the biggest argument we get is your prices are too high. I'm like, I wish I could have them lower. I can't. And there's any number of factors, processing costs, etc., that people want that level of quality, that level of ownership, that level of stewardship, but it costs money. And until the last few years, most customers didn't want to pay for that. And I think that is shifting culturally. And I'm really curious to see how that changes the market.
It would be so much better if somehow, as a country, we would go back to small farming. We have to somehow, and I think all this, it really has to be education and then testimony and people experiencing the health benefits themselves and the flavor qualities and such, that it's a change of lifestyle. like sometimes here everybody's so busy, and then we go, well, I want food really fast, and I want it to be healthy, and I want it really fast, and I want it to be cheap. Well, there's just no way that at some point we're being lied to, because and you just have to be careful that, okay, on the package it said healthy and it's cheap and I'm busy. It's very hard, to the processed food. We really need to get away from the processed food. And of course, I think people, as they watch TV, of course, a lot of them are aware that RFK is changing some things. And people ask me, is that really good? I go, yeah, it's awesome. But at the same time, if you wait for your government to save you, you might die. You need to take just some self-ownership. And I think you're asking, where's the future of this? I think that lies a lot in education, because the government could change nothing. But if we all, as consumers, got to be smarter about and vote with our dollars and our actions, we would be healthier people, and there would be a higher demand, for the small local farmers, and we would take away from it. And then when the big corporate entities saw that, they would have to try and move that way. So I think the demand and the education is the best way to go with everything.
One of the trends I feel is food being perceived as a medicine or for a health benefit aside from its basic nutrient value. And people are more and more starting to look at foods as how it can benefit them in other ways. And what foods are natural sources that they can use and consume to treat a potential ailment that they may have or to prevent one, versus a pharmaceutical approach. I think we're going to see that not just in the fresh produce industry, but also within other industries that provide food, in creating other foods, perhaps, technology. You take one product and create another product that may facilitate part of that health benefit. I look at what berries or other fruits or vegetables might be able to provide for a health benefit. So I try to be as organic as possible in my personal approach, and I'm not advocating that for anyone else, but I think the more simplistic something is, it's probably the healthier it might be.
Well, one thing we're really looking at, seeing a lot, is bold flavors and textures. And this is that kind of sensorial, kind of experiential trend that we've sort of been speaking about. And we're seeing quite a lot of this around there's a phrase that's being used, third culture kids. And so that's kind of a next generation of chefs who perhaps are growing up in a culture that is different from the one that their parents were in. And it's kind of, I guess it's next gen fusion, really. And so we're seeing lots of bold flavors, really uncompromising heat. The US especially is really leading in this area. And I think it taps into something Alex was saying earlier about not being afraid to really sort of play around those edges, and consumers have got an appetite for experience. So sour is a flavor that we're seeing a lot more of. Tang Fastics are this really kind of sour gummy that have overtaken Haribo Star Mix now, because people are really seeking that kind of sour gummy experience. Generally gummies, I think quite a lot we're seeing people freezing gummy bears, or there's like a gummy bear ice pop or sweet chili gummies. Again, it taps into that textural experience of a little bit sweet and a little bit savory. Also, nostalgia of the gummy bear is really kind of coming through in that trend as well. So that's kind of a big thing. And I think also that's tapping into the snackification as well. So it's really very much kind of entered our mainstream in terms of how we're eating. And so any kind of food innovation that can be formulated into a kind of a snack format, especially for the UK and the German markets, especially where they're really kind of, and US actually as well, which are very snack heavy cultures. That's a really interesting sort of new trend to follow.
Like the rising demand comes from expectations as well for better products. And I think the industry has, listened. We're aware of it and we're doing it, whether it means we're cleaning up the labels and trying to make sure that you can read the label and understand what's there, or we're creating products with better texture, better flavor, look better, and so on and so forth. Moving forward, it's just going to get better. I mean, it's like any other technology. We're going to figure out ways to make this product better and better, and it's going to integrate in society. I'm not sure if we're 5 years out or 10 years out, but there will be a time where you're not going to think a lot about what's you're eating specifically. You're going to be, you're going to be looking at products right next to each other that's animal based and plant based. We see that today. It's more viable in Europe than it is in the U.S. We seem to be fighting it a little bit here in the U.S. but it's going to be part of the mainstay. Look, I know we're going to grow. I don't think that's a question. I think most people in the industry, even outside of the industry, would agree that will continue to grow. There's a more natural grassroots movement now because the younger generations are already aware of what we do and are interested in what we do and will purchase and buy and enjoy what we make. So the education part, as I said earlier, is almost gone. Now it's about, hey, are you making something that I like and something that's delicious that I want to eat and eat over and over again? And is it interesting? And I think there's no question we can do that. And we are doing that. So we will continue to see kind of natural growth over the next 5 years. And I think from 5 to 10 years, that may even accelerate, because as the generations change, we're going to have more and more people that are rooted into this because this is what they know. You know, as I said, the education part is kind of gone. Now the younger generations, they know about these products. They talk about it amongst themselves. You've got your peers going back and forth and saying, hey, I want to try that. We don't have to go back to where we were a few years ago with, big, very large campaigns on PR and marketing and social media with influencers that have 30 or 50 million followers that jump on and try it once and then move on to the next product. That's not a healthy way to grow an industry, I don't think. So what we're doing now is better. And I think it's just going to be more steady growth than explosive growth like we've seen in the past.
Yeah, I think we will see the pendulum swing and we will see restaurants take back delivery in-house. Now, I believe that the W-2 delivery model is broken and having employed delivery drivers just doesn't work. What the companies like DoorDash and Uber and Instacart have shown us is that the people who deliver like to be employed as 1099s, right? They like to have flexibility in their scheduling. They like to write off their cars and, whatever else they do in the spare time that they have. And that model is just superior to a W-2 employed model. I think we swung from in-house delivery, which most, of course, like pizza and Chinese places historically have done, to outsourcing delivery in the form of something like a DoorDash, Uber, Instacart. I think we will swing back to an in-house model to enable better control, better guest experience, better food safety, better issue resolution, right? All of those things are possible when those drivers are in-house. And the difference will be that we will just have a new way of employing these people, right? We will be able to have our own in-house drivers that meet our brand standards and that we can make sure are not working when they're sick or what have you, but also are employed on a very flexible 1099 contractor model.
Drone delivery is going to, I think, be a big disruptor. And I think it is going to be for the good. Granted, we don't want drones flying over our heads all the time, so maybe they have to work on prop noise and things like that, or make sure there's a longer, little delivery cable that drops down. But yeah, there's a couple companies that are working on this right now in the U.S. They have successfully done this elsewhere. And we are looking forward to partnering with them to try this out, at least in the Austin area.
I think we talked about, we're still going to see more AI and more automation and more pressure. But, I think that only means, like we just talked about, like this need for human-centered leadership is only going to grow. And I think we're going to see that even more because there's going to be more pressure that's coming from trade instability and tariffs and layoffs and just the economy in general. That things I think are going to get harder before it gets easier. And even though the food industry is very resilient, we will figure it out. I think the question is at what cost? And so I think the more we think about how we take care of people, the easier we'll get through this next portion in the next 12 months.
I agree with Jill. This leadership is going to continue to bubble to the top. I mean, organizations are already talking about culture, which is amazing. Making the connection between then I need to make sure that I'm investing in my leaders and giving them the tools to navigate this period of time is going to be even more critical. You know, when things settle down, if they ever do settle down, right? Because there's really no settle down period. But just like we talk about coming out of COVID, there's some organizations that's like, oh, COVID hit us hard and we're rebuilding. There's some organizations like we were prepared and we did not see much disruption through COVID. We're going to hear the same type of things happening after this period of time to say, how well did your organization make it through this period of time? And how are they equipped for the next period that will be right on its heels? Food touches everyone in every industry, every single person in the world, right? It's the reason why we feel all of these shifts. Organizations that are proactive, they ensure that their people have the right tools to succeed. They are the ones that said, yes, we were prepared for it. We learned a lot. We're shifting some things, but we were prepared. We did not see the type of shifts in business the way that or the organizations did because we invested in our people.
I think that we're living in a very transformative time right now. I think that we're going to see a lot of change in the next year to 3 years. And I think that what's probably best is be prepared for those changes and to be willing and ready to adapt to those adjustments. I think that we'll see a lot more focus on some of these chemical concerns. Perhaps it's colors or artificial flavors or these other peripheral from a food safety perspective to the things we're focused on. But you'll have to, as an organization, be ready to adapt and do what you need to do to adjust your strategy. So for instance, if you find that an ingredient that you previously used is now banned, how are you going to adjust and modify that recipe? And perhaps you should think now about doing those different types of things before you hear the knock on the door to do it. So get ahead of some of those different things, but also remember, the critical food safety things, right? Is making sure that, we keep hot foods hot, cold foods cold. We're following our HACCP programs, whatever our critical control points are, that we're tracking against those, because those are going to continue to deliver the expectation that we want them to. But we know that, generally speaking, the additives and food colors and these types of things are a lot more relatable from a PR perspective. Parents, moms understand these things a little bit more, or at least are willing to talk about them. So I think we'll see a lot more focus on those, especially over the next several years. The using technology in your area and where it makes sense is certainly going to be important.
I think we need to start getting ready to really understand and grasp chemicals. There's been a lot of discussion around it. It's always been a risk we've identified with for food, but do we really do we understand it as well as we understand the microbiological risks? So how do we really start to gain some of that knowledge and start to understand the toxicology of chemicals even more? So I really foresee that is kind of our next thing as an industry we're going to have to tackle together and really gain some understanding and share knowledge and have that transparency, because we're all in this one together. Chemicals are part of our new world. They've been there. We just need to understand them and have a story around them and be able to talk about them. I would say even myself have a lot more to learn around chemical and the safety in our food supply chain, and knowing that it is being discussed more and we're seeing more state regulations, discussion around regulations at the state level, that us understanding it as an industry and coming together can help us all work through it.
There's a continued demand, and rightly so, of transparency from consumers. But those consumers may not understand our tech speak, right? We have to think about how to communicate differently. And here's just a recent example. Although my husband keeps telling me I shouldn't do this, sometimes I just can't help myself. I waded into a raw milk debate on social media. There were a few of this woman, immunocompromised child, has goats, is self-pasteurizing, and had said, hey, I am hearing raw milk might help him. I would like more information. Well, there was all of the, I've drunk it my entire life and never had a problem. There were those of us wading in with science and data and facts. The most effective one was a friend of mine who said, would you not use a seatbelt on your precious child just because no one in your family ever had an accident? Would you not have that same precious child not wear a helmet when they go skateboarding just because you've never known anybody? Shoot, Tony Hawk wears a helmet, She decided to continue to go on pasteurizing. So there's a lot of different things that are probably going to happen in this next year, but I think it's really important to get back to good, solid communication in words that make sense and resonate with, again, this consumer just gets further and further away from the origin of food. And, there's a lot of people out there with their personal, stories. Great that's never happened to you. Awesome. But how awful would you feel if that young child, because never happened to you, something happened to that child? I wouldn't be able to live with myself. But we have to learn how to put words and put things into words and communicate in an effective manner. And it's not always the data and the facts.
I think we've kind of been moving in the right direction with things like regenerative farming and things like that. But waste reduction, packaging reduction, I think that needs to get a bit of a kick up the bum again now. The ball was rolling and then COVID came and things kind of closed down, I think, quite a lot. So some focus on that again would be good. I think we need to start making those differences shine. Embrace the moments where you lose control, because they'll be your greatest learning opportunities.
Thank you for joining us for another bite-sized nugget of food tech talk, supply chain insights from farm to fork. Make sure to subscribe. And if you love the podcast, leave us a review on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. To learn more about Trustwell and request your free demo of our technology platform that connects food formulation, products, nutrition analysis, and compliant labeling with traceability, recall readiness, and supply chain transparency, please visit us at www.trustwell.com and click Get Started or click the link in the show notes to learn more. Thanks for listening.